What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm back with another video, and today I am finishing up Vance Boelter's criminal complaint. This part is the part with the probable cause. If you want to check out the counts, then look at my part 1, and I'm gonna pin that in the comments down below. So let's get right into it. As described below, Vance Luther Boelter embarked on a planned campaign of stalking and violence designed to inflict fear, injure, and K members of the Minnesota State Legislature and their family. After taking deliberate steps to research his victims and prepare for that campaign, Boelter traveled to the homes of at least 4 public officials during the early morning hours of June 14, 2024, disguised as a police officer and heavily armed with GUNs and body armor. Boelter approached those officials' homes under the guise of lawful authority. That morning, Boelter unalived 2 people and seriously injured 2 others. Boelter's preparation of his stalking and unaliving campaign. Evidence uncovered in this investigation indicate that Boelter extensively planned his stalking, unalivings, and attempted unalivings. As discussed below, Boelter's preparation efforts included identifying several websites that allow users to search for personal information of others, like home addresses and family members' names. Boelter also made lists containing the names and home addresses of many Minnesota public officials, mostly or all Democrats. He found websites that sold hyper-realistic silicone masks, which looked like the mask Boelter wore during at least his pow-powing of John Hoffman, a senator in the Minnesota State Senate, and his wife, and he purchased materials from Fleet Farm for use in his pow pows, including flashlights and resources that could be used to create the type of fake police license plate found on Boelter's SUV. Boelter drove that SUV to the home of Minnesota House of Representative speakers Emerita Melissa Hortman, where Boelter unalived Representative and Mr. Hortman. As described below, Boelter undertook these acts and others in preparation for, in furtherance of, and with the intent to injure, harass, and intimidate Minnesota elected officials. Champlin, Minnesota attempted unaliving of State Senator John Hoffman. In the early morning hours of June 14, 2025, Boelter drove in a black SUV equipped with law enforcement style emergency lights to the home of Minnesota State Senator John Hoffman in Champlin, Minnesota. Video footage from Senator Hoffman's home depicted Boelter approaching the front door dressed to impersonate a law enforcement officer wearing a black tactical vest and holding a flashlight. He wore a flesh-colored mask covering his entire head. As shown in that footage and as described later by multiple members of the Hoffman family, Boelter knocked on the door. He shouted repeatedly, "This is the police, open the door." In response to Boelter shouting, one or both of Senator and Miss Hoffman answered the door. According to a statement later provided to law enforcement by Mrs. Hoffman, Boelter said there had been pow-powing reported inside the house, and he asked whether the Hoffmans had any GUNs. Senator Hoffman responded that there were, but that all GUNs were locked away. According to Mrs. Hoffman, at some point, she realized that Boelter, who had been shining a flashlight toward the Hoffmans, impairing their view of Boelter, was wearing a mask. Upon realizing this, one or both of the Hoffmans told Boelter that Boelter was not a real police officer. Boelter responded by saying something like, "This is a robbery." Mrs. Hoffman reported that Senator Hoffman tried to push Boelter backwards through the front door, at which point Boelter pow-powed Senator Hoffman repeatedly. Mrs. Hoffman attempted to shut Boelter outside the home by shutting the door on him, but Boelter then pow-powed Mrs. Hoffman repeatedly. At approximately 2:06 a.m., Senator Hoffman's daughter called 911 to report that her parents had been pow-powed. Law enforcement responded and provided medical aid to Senator and Mrs. Hoffman, who were transported to a local hospital with multiple GUN wounds. Although they suffered critical GUN wounds, Senator and Mrs. Hoffman were stabilized. Maple Grove, Minnesota, home of Minnesota Public Official 1. After repeatedly pow-powing the Hoffmans, Boelter traveled to the home of another Minnesota elected representative, Public Official 1, in Maple Grove, Minnesota. Video footage from surveillance cameras at Public Official 1's home showed Boelter repeatedly ringing the home's doorbell at approximately 2:24 a.m. Boelter wore a black tactical vest wearing a badge resembling those worn by law enforcement. While ringing the doorbell, Boelter loudly said, "This is the police. Open the door. This is the police. We have a warrant." He repeated the command several times. Public Official 1 and her family were not home at the time and did not answer the door. Boelter left the residence, New Hope, Minnesota, home of public official 2. Later that night, local law enforcement in New Hope, Minnesota, learned of pow-powing at Senator Hoffman's home and dispatched an officer to the New Hope home of another Minnesota elected representative, public official 2, to conduct a safety check. At approximately 2:36 a.m., an officer encountered a man now believed to have been Boelter sitting in the driver's side seat of a black SUV parked down the street from public official 2's home. The officer believed that the SUV, which resembled a squad car and was equipped with a police-style light bar, was in fact a law enforcement officer providing protection for public official 2. The officer reported that the individual sitting in the black SUV was a bald white male staring straight ahead. The officer tried to speak with that man, but he continued staring straight ahead and did not respond. The officer drove the rest of the distance to public official 2's residence, saw no signs of distress, and waited there until additional law enforcement officers joined her. By the time they did, the dark SUV had left the area. Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Unaliving of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband. Around 3:30 a.m., local law enforcement, having learned of the pow-powing at Senator Hoffman's home in Champlin, went to the home of Minnesota State Representative Melissa Hortman in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, to conduct a safety check. Upon arriving, law enforcement saw a black Ford Explorer SUV parked outside the home. The black SUV resembled a law enforcement squad car and was equipped with police-style lights. Those lights were on and flashing. The SUV's license plate had been replaced with a fake police license plate. Law enforcement arrived at Representative Hortman's home, saw Boelter dressed in dark colors and standing near the front door facing the house. Moments after their arrival on scene, Boelter fired several times into the house as he moved forward, entering the Hortman's home. In dashcam footage from the scene, moments after Boelter fired, he moved into the house. A second set of pow-pows can be heard. At the same time, several flashes appear in the entryway windows. At the same time, officers move forward to the home's front doorway where they saw Mr. Hortman lying on the floor. Law enforcement approached the fallen Mr. Hortman, who had been struck multiple times, to try to provide medical assistance. When officers entered the home, they found Representative Hortman suffering from multiple wounds. Officers also found inside the home the Hortman's family dog gravely injured. Representative and Mr. Hortman died from their injuries. Boelter fled the Hortman's home, leaving behind Boelter's 2015 Ford Explorer SUV that was parked outside the house. After obtaining a warrant, officers searched that vehicle. I know from my training and experience that Ford did not manufacture 2015 Explorers in the state of Minnesota. Officers found evidence tying Boelter to the SUV, including a bill for a storage unit with Boelter's name. Officers also found the license plates for the SUV Boelter drove that night. Public records show the SUV is registered to Boelter and his wife. Officers also found approximately 5 GUNs in the SUV, including semi-automatic assault-style GUNs, as well as a large quantity of ammunition organized into loaded magazines. They also found a medical kit containing wound treatment supplies and several eye masks of the kind that may be worn while sleeping. From the SUV, officers recovered several notebooks full of handwritten notes. Listed among the pages of those notebooks were names of more than 45 Minnesota state and federal public officials, including Representative Hortman, whose address was written next to her name. One of the notebooks contained lists of internet-based people search engines, including True People Search, Spokeo, People, People Finders, Been Verified, White Pages, Truth Finders, Intellis, Ownerly, US Search, and People Looker. I know from my training and experience and the training and experience of other officers and agents involved in this investigation that these websites aggregate data from various online and offline sources to provide the querying user details about the search for person, such as home addresses, phone numbers, and information about family members. In addition, officers found a Garmin GPS navigation device in the SUV. That device trip history included the addresses of Representative Hortman's home in Brooklyn Park, Public Official 1's home in Maple Grove, and Senator Hoffman's home in Champlin. The trip history also included the home addresses for at least 2 other state officials. Upon searching the surrounding area, law enforcement found components of a disassembled Beretta 92 9mm semi-automatic and at least 3 magazines strewn across the ground a few blocks from Representative Hortman's home. Rounds contained in one or more of those magazines bore the same head stamp as the discharge cartridge casings found within or in the immediate vicinity of Representative Hortman's home. Records accessible to law enforcement indicate this Beretta was purchased by Boelter in or about January 2000. In the same general area, law enforcement also found a flashlight, a tactical body armor vest, and a mask, all consistent with those Boelter can be seen wearing earlier in the morning. According to records obtained by law enforcement, Boelter purchased 3 Beretta GUNs as well as many other GUNs. Subsequent investigation and Boelter's apprehension. Law enforcement obtained information to track the locations of cell phones known to be used by Boelter and his wife. Law enforcement used the resulting data to locate Mrs. Boelter. Mrs. Boelter consented to a law enforcement search of her phone. That search revealed that around 6:18 a.m., Mrs. Boelter and other family members received a group text from Boelter. In that text, Boelter wrote, among other things, Dad went to war. I don't want to say more because I don't want to implicate anybody. Around the same time, Mrs. Boelter received a text message from Boelter stating, among other things, words are not going to explain how sorry I am for this situation. There's going to be some people coming to the house armed and trigger happy, and I don't want you guys around. Mrs. Boelter consented to a search of her car. From the car, law enforcement recovered 2 GUNs, approximately 10,000 in cash, and passports for Mrs. Boelter and her children who were in the car with Mrs. Boelter at the time. Law enforcement obtained cell phone location information for multiple phones known to be associated with Boelter. That location data led law enforcement to a residence on Fremont Avenue in North Minneapolis. Law enforcement also found that same Avenue address in the Garmin's trip history described above. At the Fremont home, law enforcement encountered and interviewed a man who said he lives in the Fremont residence. He explained, shares it with Boelter at least part-time. Officers conducted a warranted search of the Fremont Avenue residence. Officers found a handwritten list of names containing many of those same public officials named in the notebooks found in Boelter's SUV as described above. Officers also found a purchase receipt from Fleet Farm, dated on June 9th, 2025, which documented the purchase of, among other things, a flashlight, a tactical GUN case, 2 types of GUN ammunition, and the materials believed to have been used to create the fake police license plate attached to Boelter's SUV. Law enforcement also found several notebooks containing handwritten notes. These notebooks were in addition to those recovered from the SUV. Among the pages of those various notebooks, officers found listed the names and often home addresses of numerous Minnesota public officials, including Representative Hortman, one of the people Boelter unalived on June 14th. Beneath her name, a notation reads, quote, married Mark, 2 children, 11th term. Mark was the name of Representative Hortman's husband. Another notation in one of the recovered notebooks names Hortman, her address, and her spouse again with the added notation. Big house off golf course, 2 ways in, watch from one spot. That is an apt description of Hortman's home, which backs up to a golf course. Another notebook notation lists 3 websites for companies that sell face masks similar to the one Boelter wore. One of those websites describes itself as your premier destination for high-end, hyper-realistic silicone mask. Another of those websites asserts it sets a new standard in hyper-realistic silicone masks. In video footage from the area of the Fremont Avenue residence obtained by law enforcement, Boelter can be seen returning to that residence in the morning after his unaliving of the Hortmans and his pow-powings of the Hoffmans. According to an interview later conducted by law enforcement with Witness 1 at approximately 7 a.m. on June 14th, Boelter met Witness 1 at a bus stop at 48th Avenue North and North Lindell Avenue in North Minneapolis. Witness 1 reported to law enforcement that he had no prior connection with Boelter prior to meeting at the bus stop. According to Witness 1, Boelter had 2 duffel bags with him. Boelter asked to purchase an electronic bike from Witness 1. After Witness 1 agreed, they together boarded a bus and traveled to Witness 1's residence. After arriving at Witness One's residence, Boelter asked to purchase Witness One's Buick sedan as well. Witness One agreed. Around this time, Boelter and Witness One drove in the Buick to a U.S. bank branch location in Robbinsdale, Minnesota, where Boelter withdrew $2,200 from and therefore emptied an account in his name. Cameras at U.S. Bank captured Boelter wearing a cowboy hat. Boelter reportedly provided about $900 to Witness One to complete the purchase of the e-bike and Buick. Around 2:30 a.m. on June 15th, law enforcement received information about a possible sighting of an individual riding an e-bike approximately 2 miles northeast of Boelter's family home in Green Isle, Minnesota. However, law enforcement was unable to locate Boelter at that time. Law enforcement investigated further and discovered the Buick that Boelter purchased from Witness One abandoned on Highway 25 close to the location of the reported e-bike sighting. Law enforcement approached the vehicle using a drone to check for explosives or other potential safety concerns. A search of that vehicle uncovered, among other things, what appeared to be the cowboy hat Boelter wore when captured in the U.S. bank security footage, as well as a handwritten letter directed to the FBI. In that letter, the writer, who claimed his name was Dr. Vance Boelter, admitted to being the Pow Power at large in Minnesota involved in the two Pow Powlings the morning of Saturday, June 15th. At approximately 9:10 p.m. on June 15th, 2025, law enforcement located Boelter in a field in Green Isle, Minnesota, approximately 1 mile from his family residence. Officers took Boelter into custody. Conclusion. Based on the foregoing, I submit that there is probable cause to believe that in or about June 2025 in the state and district of Minnesota, Vance Luther Boelter committed stalking in violation of 18 U.S.C. 2261A2, use of a GUN to unalive during and in relation to stalking in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 924J, and discharge of a GUN during and in relation to stalking in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection 924C. So there you have it. That's the full criminal complaint. And like I said, the grand jury has yet to indict him. And when they do, I will be back reading that indictment. Thank you so much for watching. If you want more videos like this, please subscribe.